Thank you. I have the opportunity to welcome an outstanding speaker today. Alicia Garza is the Special Projects Director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. She has been a recipient of multiple awards for organizing work in Black and Latino communities. She has twice been honored by the Harvey Milk Democrat Club with the Bayard Rustin Community Activist Award for her work fighting gentrification, environmental racism in San Francisco's largest remaining Black community. Alicia serves as Executive Director of the People Organized to Win Employment Rights Power in San Francisco from 2009 until 2014. Under her leadership, Power won free local public transportation for youth, fought for a seat at the table in some of the most important land use decisions affecting working class families, beat back regressive local policies targeting undocumented people, organized against the chronic police violence in Black neighborhoods, and shed light on the ongoing wave of profit-driven development that contribute to a change in San Francisco. In 2013, Alicia co-founded Black Lives Matter, an online platform that developed after the murder of Trayvon Martin. Designed to connect people interested in learning more about and fighting back against anti-Black racism. In the aftermath of the police murder of Michael Brown, it has emerged as a resistance movement to police violence and other forms of Black oppression. Alicia currently serves on the board of directors for the School of Unity and Liberation, SOUL, in Oakland, California, and is a contributing writer for War Times magazine. She serves as a trusted counsel for organizations across the country looking to build their capacity to lead and win organizing campaigns. When she's not scheming on freedom, Alicia enjoys dancing, reading, and writing, and scheming some more. BWFJ has worked with Alicia over the years as a member of GGJ, the Grassroots Global Justice Alliance, and looks forward to working with her in rebuilding the Black liberation movement. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Alicia Garza.
Hey y'all, how you doing? It's a real honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And the honor is not lost on me. I know it's a big deal to have been invited to keynote this banquet. And so first and foremost, I want to say a big thank you to Black Workers for Justice. I want to say a big thank you to Ajamu, both of them. The Sister Rukia for being such incredible hosts. I want to say a big thank you to North Carolina. I got to meet a whole bunch of organizations and individuals yesterday, and it was incredible. Thank you. I also want to just give a big shout out to my family over here in Bold. Thanks for coming. And then I also just want to say that there's like a lot of my own personal heroes in this room. So I can't even name all of y'all, but thank you. So I have a whole thing I want to talk about. I want to share with you the story of Black Lives Matter, which is much more than a hashtag. Everybody say it with me. Much more than a hashtag. Okay, cool. Keep that with you. But before I do so, I want each of us to make a pledge. I want each of us to make a pledge to erase a particular phrase from our vocabulary. And that phrase starts with, the young people need to know about, young people need to learn, young people need to. Let's take that out of our vocabulary. Let me say why. First and foremost, because young people today and always have been some of the most courageous, some of the most innovative, some of the most willing to take risks. And young people are listening to us right now. And we want to be able to affirm the risks, the courage, and the willingness to learn. So these young people I'm sitting with over here, they definitely know their history. They definitely know their ancestors. They definitely know their freedom fighters. And they're reminding us of the freedom fighters that we forget. So thank you for doing that. And in saying that, I want to just open up tonight, not just by saying thank you, but by acknowledging that there are huge shoulders that we and I am standing on. And that we are clear, right, that I and many of us would not be here in this room if it were not for the sacrifices, the courage, the innovation, and the boldness. Boom, boom, boom. Of many of you sitting in this room. So we want to say thank you. And to tell the story about Black Lives Matter, you are a part of that story. We can't talk about this current moment without talking about the history and the shoulders on which we stand. Black Lives Matter, counter to what you may have heard and counter to what you may say, is not only much more than a hashtag, but it's much more than a moment. And it is a moment and a movement that is rooted and grounded in a legacy of struggle. And I think to talk about Black Lives Matter, lovingly known as BLM to many of us, and I know some of y'all are like, listen, we use BLM to talk about the Black Liberation Movement, and I want to say, so do we. So do we. But I think it's important to also contextualize my cohort, my generation, and our conditions. Because oftentimes, if we are to look at this moment from a lens, right, that doesn't take into account what it is that my cohort, the folks who are, 40 and under. I'm 34, y'all, slow down. The conditions that we're coming up in, right, and the conditions that impact and influence us, and the conditions that have led to those of us who have taken the streets, those of us who have shut down governor's offices and courthouses and freeways. See y'all. So first and foremost, it's important to say that our generation is impacted, quite frankly, by the intentional and deliberate decimation of what was once a very vibrant Black liberation movement. And the impact of that doesn't just, of course, influence us, but it influences the generation above us who is still struggling with those impacts. We have many, many people who fought for our freedom who are inside the walls of prisons and jails. We have many more who are outside those walls, but are still stuck in prison. And the state facilitated that. The state made us suspicious of one another. In some cases, the state turned us into informants against one another. In some cases, the state made us suspicious of those of us perhaps being informants against other people, right? But the impact on my generation is that those of us who are looking for lessons, who are looking for wisdom, who are looking for answers, are getting some, but they're fragmented and in pieces. And quite frankly, they're shrouded, in some cases, under the weight of the generational trauma that this state has caused on our people. The other part of our historical context, of course, is the rise and now the incredible impact of neoliberalism. The deliberate and full frontal assault on the gains that were won. But not only that, on the gains that could be won, that should be won. The rise of the right wing and the consolidation of power of the right, which impacts every aspect of our lives. And those of y'all here in the South understand that very, very well. The war on drugs, which made Black people targets, criminals, deviants, and prisoners. And then, of course, there's the role and influence and impact of technology, right? And I raise that, oh, I love you so much, hi. I raise that to say, right, that we're not just obsessed with our cell phones. We're not just obsessed with Twitter and Facebook, but that we use those tools in the service of visibilizing the conditions in our communities. Where do we see that? First, in 1992, in Los Angeles, when Rodney King was brutally beaten by the LAPD. And it was caught on video by someone in the community who said enough is enough. And the turning over of that video not only raised the consciousness of an entire nation, but it sparked an uprising that forever changed, not just Los Angeles, but Black people, not just here in the United States, but around the world. Oscar Grant, whose murder was also captured on video, cell phone video this time, not video recorders. In front of hundreds of people, 3 blocks away from my home, Oscar Grant was murdered by Johannes Meserly. And now what we see is that my generation, this cohort, I'm not even gonna say young people, because this cohort of people is using technology to tell a different story, to tell the stories that the corporate media won't tell. And we do it faster, and we do it better than they do. Now that is indeed something to celebrate. So when we talk about this moment, we can't talk about it in absence of those things that I just laid out. Because when we say, well, why don't young people understand? And why don't young people know? I want to also bring into the room what we do know. I want to bring into the room what we carry on our shoulders. And I want to continue to ask you to stand with us, for us to stand with each other, to say enough is enough, and to build enough political power in order to make that a reality for all of us. Now, I'm going to share really quickly the story of Black Lives Matter and how it came to be, but I'm sure y'all know. I love y'all. Well, quite frankly, just to say it really short and really simple, we watched when Trayvon was murdered in his own community. A child was murdered in his own community by a man who was aspiring to be a security guard, aspiring to be the neighborhood watch. Or perhaps he was aspiring to be a new version of the slave patrols. But whatever he was aspiring to be, he took it upon himself to take a life, to take a child's life, to take something from a family who will never get that back. And when Trayvon was killed, there were no protests. No one was out in the streets. But everybody was watching when he was killed. Now, I don't know about you, but when Trayvon was murdered, I watched that trial religiously. I watched it like it was the OJ trial. I wanted to know every argument, every detail, because I wanted a reason. Why is Trayvon no longer alive? I didn't know Trayvon. I'd never been to Sanford, Florida. But I do have a brother who's 6 feet tall. He's beautiful. Huge afro, he don't comb it. Stuff all in it, you know what I mean? Boys. He's brilliant. He's a videographer, a cartoonist. He's a skateboarder. He just does his own thing. And he is a Black child growing up in a community that's not unlike Sanford, Florida. And when I think about my brother, who just turned 25, I still call him a child. But when I think about him, who just turned 25, and I think about Trayvon, and I think about Trayvon's family, I can't help but want to know, what is the reason that his life was taken? Because that could have been my family, quite literally. Now, when George Zimmerman was acquitted in the murder of Trayvon Martin, like many of you, I felt like I had gotten punched in the gut. Not because I knew Trayvon, not because I'd ever been to Sanford, but quite frankly, because I couldn't find the words to describe to my 25-year-old brother how to protect himself, how to stay alive in a world that is hell-bent on taking his life. I still don't have those words. But the words I had that night, as I watched Black people stream out of the place where I was in a bar, and I watched Black people leave that bar, and we couldn't look at each other. We couldn't look each other in the eye. Shoulders hunched, head down, eyes averted. What this country does to our psyche, our sense of well-being, our sense of our own humanity, is disgusting. It's infuriating. So what I did that night was I wrote a love letter to us. Because no matter what they tried to say about Trayvon, put that child on trial after he was dead. No matter what they said about Trayvon, maybe he smoked weed and that made him aggressive. Maybe it was the hoodie that he wore. Maybe it was his parents' fault. Did his parents love him enough? Were they in his life enough? All of these things, blaming Black people for conditions we did not create. I'm never going to understand that. And I don't want to. What I wanted to say to us was, there is nothing wrong with us. We are an incredible, powerful, resilient, creative, brilliant group of human beings. And that deserves to be celebrated. But what is also true is that we also have to believe that our lives matter, no matter what. We have to stop telling each other that if we don't vote, if we don't go to school, if we don't have degrees, if our pants are down around our ankles, that somehow we are not worthy of life. We are more than worthy of life. In fact, we have fought hundreds and hundreds of years for this life. So, I said, Black people, I love you. I love us. We matter. Our lives matter. Black lives matter. And people said, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Because everything around me is telling me that that is not true. Everything around me is telling me that that is not true. My sister Patrice, she put a hashtag in front of it. Now, I don't know. You know what I mean? I know y'all think we're some whizzes on social media. I'm like, I don't know. I got people teaching me how to use these things. But she said, let's start an organizing project to bring Black people together, to love on each other, and to fight the forces that wish that we would go away. Let us connect people across the country to come together to fight for our lives. Our sister Opal said, well, I know how to do that. I have a little skills in technology. I could build out some platforms for us to tell our stories, for us to connect to one another, so that we can strategize together. Not in group chats, not in tweets, but offline. Because I can't tell you what happened when that message went out over the interwebs. People said, I feel that. And I want to do something about it. I was telling the team this morning from Organize 2020 that teachers were reaching out to us over and over again saying, you know, in my school, Black lives don't matter. In my school, my kids don't believe that they are worthy of life. My kids are living in communities where they don't have rights. So I would like to contribute to this thing, whatever it is. And we would say, well, you know, 12 other people like you reached out to us today, so could y'all get together and follow up with each other and meet one another and do some work together? And they say, yeah, right? So when we say Black Lives Matter, and folks see that hashtag in front or the pound sign or whatever you call it, and then folks go, oh, social media activists. We say, no, no, no. We use social media as a vehicle to get us where we need to be. We know that clicking like on Facebook is not organizing. We know that retweeting is not building power. And we know that we need to organize and that we need to build power. So I just want to say that for the record. Now, the significance of Black Lives Matter is that it is both a call and a response. So the call was for us to come together to fight state-sanctioned violence in all of its forms so that we can pursue the liberation of our people. Black Lives Matter was a response to the virulent anti-Black racism that plagues our society today. And not just here in the US, but all over the world. We understood that when we called to bring this together under a national organizing project, that it was our goal to contribute to rebuilding a vibrant Black liberation movement in this country. We understand that. We also know that if we're going to do that, if we are going to be successful, that we have to pay attention to the experiences of Black people, which are complex and diverse and beautiful, but also ignored. Not just by the people around us, but sometimes by us ourselves. Have we learned that if Black people are going to get free, that it must be all Black people, not just Black men? Do we understand that Black liberation means Black women? That Black liberation means Black queer people? That Black liberation means Black trans people? None of us are free until all of us are free. Now, I wish I could get into all of that. Some of y'all are like, queer, trans, what? That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Now, quite frankly, what I mean is, Black folks of all different stripes. All of us or none of us. That's what we need to remember. Now, why do we say Black Lives Matter? And not all lives, everybody's life.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. Now, look, y'all. Yes, all lives matter. Write it down. You can tell people, she said! All lives do matter. In a perfect utopian world, all lives would matter equally, without question, and without cause. We don't live in that world today, y'all.
That's right.
We do not live in that world today.
That's the truth.
When we say stop the war on Black America, that's not just a slogan.
That's right. That's right.
When we say stop the war on Black America, we mean free all of our political prisoners.
Yes.
Free them all.
When we say stop the war on Black America, we mean why are there 1 million Black people behind bars today?
That's right.
It's not everybody that's behind bars, y'all. There's 2 million people, 2.8 million people in prisons and jails in this country. It's not everybody. 1 million Black people, y'all. That's half.
Yes.
Half of everybody in jail is Black. Now, when we say stop the war on Black people, we mean stop the privatization of public resources like water, we mean stop the environmental assault on Black communities.
That's right. That's right.
We mean why is the fastest growing prison population Black women? We mean why is the average life expectancy of a Black trans person 35 years old? Life expectancy. Oh yeah, in the last 4 months, because we're still in April, there have been more than 12 documented murders of trans people. Documented, meaning those are the ones that make the news. Those are the ones that make the magazine articles. There are so many more that never do. Because Black trans people are stuffed in garbage cans. Black trans people can be beaten and murdered in front of police stations. So that's what we mean when we say stop the war on Black America. When we say stop the war on Black America, we mean stop the war on public sector unions, where Black folks are still hanging on. That's what we mean. When we say stop the war on Black America, we mean why do Black women, if we are employed, why do we make 64 cents to every dollar a white man makes? And 64 cents to the 80 cents, they upped it, y'all, that a white woman makes. Stop the war on Black America. Now, when we say Black Lives Matter, and if you're wondering why we don't say all lives matter, because we do believe that all lives matter, and nobody believed that more than Black people. But the reality is that's not the world we live in right now, y'all. It's just not. Now, if we want to live in that world, then it means that we need to fight like hell right now for Black people.
Come on.
I want to spend my last few minutes, because I know, you're looking at me like, come on, girl.
Do what you do.
I want to talk a little bit more about what do we need to do if we are going to make this moment much more than a moment.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is a movement. I have been all over this country, y'all. in places where you did not know there were black people. I promise you that. And black folks are like, listen, we turned up today. It's our time. It's our time. When I go to the grocery store and the lady says, oh no, today is not their day. They're killing us. We're finished with that. When I go to Portland, Maine, and the Somali students in Lewiston, Maine, excuse me, even smaller than Portland, put up Black Lives Matter signs in their high school, and their principal tells them to take it down. So they say, oh no, no, we're gonna shut it down. When we go to colleges and universities, and y'all know how that is. Yes, Black Lives Matter. And then the students do a direct action to tell the university they need to divest from private prisons if they really believe that Black Lives Matter. So I don't know, y'all. I've been all over this country. And one thing that's beautiful is that we are everywhere. Everywhere we are resisting. Big ways, small ways. And it's not just black folks, y'all. There are folks who are really putting themselves on the line, saying we need to figure out how it is that we combat anti-black racism in our community so that we too can get free. Because anti-black racism, y'all, is a chain on all of us. Anyhow, I want to talk a little bit about two things. One, let me just say it real quick because I've heard it and I want to address it. What are the demands? Oprah, who are the leaders? Y'all want to know where the leaders are? Look around. Look around. I'll tell you where the leaders are. My sister Lavette is here. She's a domestic worker from Atlanta. She came with me to Ferguson, Missouri, to stand with our family there. And she went home to Atlanta with folks like Mary Hooks and the team from Song. And she did her first direct action ever. Not because she thought it was cute, y'all. She stopped a freeway during rush hour. That's scary. That's scary, y'all. She put her life on the line for all of us. Where are the leaders? What are the demands? Well, where should we start? It's really the same stuff we've been fighting for forever. Can you stop killing us? There's one. Otherwise known as, can I live? Okay. Where do you want to start? I mean, right now, the federal government doesn't track how many slaughters there are of us. Did y'all know that? There is no tracking, officially, of police murders of black people. The Malcolm X grassroots movement did it for us. Thank you. Thank you. And their report, Operation Ghetto Storm, that came out way before all these televised and blown up images of dead black people all over. Thank you for that. Can we get that though? Can we get some kind of estimation how many of us are being murdered? Some kind of systematic tracking? Can we get that? We want that. I want that. Don't you want to know that?
Yeah.
I want full and fair employment for my people. I want decent housing for my people.
Yeah.
I want free and quality education for my people. In fact, we could list them on and on. Just pick one. Throw some
Clean air
in.
and water.
Throw some in, y'all.
Clean air and water.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Look, y'all. We want the ability to determine our own futures.
Yes.
We want the ability to live lives that are full of dignity and respect. We don't just want it, we demand it.
That's right.
We want the ability of our children and our families to grow up, period. But if we want to take it farther than that, to be able to grow up in communities that have what they need. Communities where there's schools, right? Where there's schools. Where there's fresh food, good food. We want control over the institutions in our communities. It's not rocket science, y'all. Now, we could get into it more, because I know y'all are like, yeah, but what's everybody consolidated around? Black liberation.
Yeah, that's right.
There are demands of this moment that have to do with police terrorism and state-sanctioned violence, but this movement is much bigger than that. Police are like this much of the state, y'all. So when we talk about state-sanctioned violence, we mean the conditions of our people and the role of the state within that, to facilitate that, and to make sure that we don't survive. That's what we're fighting. Now, if we're gonna do that successfully, and I'm gonna end with this really, not like, you know, what y'all sometimes hear. If we're gonna get there, there's a few things that we need to pay attention to. The first thing we need to pay attention to is this question of patriarchy in our movements. Patriarchy in our homes, our workplaces, our communities, our schools, everywhere, y'all. Now listen, we say it, it's not a slogan though, y'all. We can't be revolutionary in these streets and not revolutionary in our homes, in our organizations. Black Lives Matter is a practice, y'all.
Yeah.
All Black lives. If we're gonna win, we need to combat silos and our narrow entry points.
Yes.
This isn't just about policing, y'all. This is our moment to connect the attack on public sector unions,
Yeah.
to connect the attack on wages, to connect the attacks on women's bodies,
Yeah.
to connect the attacks on our planet. This is our time, y'all. We have to combat narrow entry points and silos. In other words, forget about your issue. I said it. I know you don't like it. We have to combat respectability politics, y'all. Stop telling us how to look, how to talk, how to walk. Who are we doing it for? I love you just the way you look.
That's right.
I'm not worried about it.
That's right.
What I am worried about is if I see you moving one foot in front of the other. That's it. We also need to combat the cult of personality, y'all.
All right.
Look, listen. So, I'm so humbled by your love. But it's not about me. We didn't start this movement. You did. We gave it language. We gave it courage. Because we went and did some stuff. But we're not celebrities, y'all. We are everyday people trying to do extraordinary things. And our job, as we understand it, is to make the impossible possible. All of us can do that. So, we don't need one person to do that for us. You don't have to know how to talk. You just got to know how to do.
That's right.
Just saying, y'all. Innovate, experiment, and sum up. Now, are we going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Is it quite possibly time for us to investigate our strategies? Is this working? If not, let's let it go. It's okay. Let's keep the best and leave the rest, y'all. We have nothing to lose but our chance. Oh, I'm going to use my last 2 seconds. Okay. Of course, we have to organize. We have to build multiple forms of power. We're not there yet. So don't be running around telling people, vote now! Yes, people need to exercise their right to make decisions, but we also need a broader strategy that sits within. We need to fight the co-optation of our movement. This is ours. This is ours. So I'm seeing it everywhere, y'all. Hillary Clinton out here talking about Black Lives Matter. I'm serious, y'all. She said it in December. She was like, I know I'm running for president. I'm getting in. But do Black Lives matter to Hillary Clinton? No. I didn't say it, y'all said it. Now, here's why this is important, y'all, and I mean it. I mean it. I'm serious about this, like serious as a heart attack. Now, y'all know that folk have been using black people to move corporate agendas for a long, long time. It ends today. You can't just say Black Lives Matter and make it happen. You can't just say racial justice and be cleared and absolved. People are trying it, y'all. People are trying it. They're like, I'm down with Black Lives Matter, because they know a few black people. You think I'm kidding? Wait till 2016, y'all.
That's right.
You're already hearing it. You're already hearing it. This is ours. We define what this means. So it's up to us. And we need to hold folk accountable for when they claim that they are in alignment with this movement.
That's right. That's right.
What does it mean to you that Black Lives Matter? Show me. Show me. Show me what your leadership looks like. Show me who makes decisions. Y'all don't hear me though. I'm just playing with y'all. Finally, for real. Look, I flew all the way here. I'm like, I'm gonna take my minutes. Finally now. It is up to us to answer the question and to force the question. What would, could, and should our lives and our world look like if Black lives really did matter? What does that mean for our organizations? What does that mean for our organizing? What does that mean for our communities? What does that mean for our workplaces? It's time for us to sharpen our vision. It is time for us to bring together different approaches, different tactics, different tools for the good of the whole. Now, I promise you, if we can stick to the practice of none of us are free until all of us are free, then we have a chance at winning. If we can actually mobilize and organize people, it's not enough just to talk about it, y'all. If we can actually do that, we have a shot at winning. Now, what's at stake, if we don't, is our lives. And that's not a rhetorical statement. But if we succeed, we have nothing to lose but our chains, y'all. Nothing at all. Now, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for bringing me here tonight. I want to thank you for your courage in hearing and maybe feeling some things you ain't felt before. But I also want to encourage you to not stop here. Take this conversation home. Take this conversation to your kitchen table. Bring your folk together and say, hey, we got work to do. We got work to do. None of us are free. I can't hear y'all. None of us are free. Until all of us are free. None of us are free. Until all of us are free. Let's do it, y'all. Thank you.